All right. Um, yeah, we're gonna go right in. Let me go back to the short list and come on. Okay. All right. Right. So, Roger Friedman, you are one of my favorite guests, one of the most favorite people I've had on this show. Just as intelligent as you are charismatic. I really enjoyed our conversation before, and we agreed, which the last time was before the election. At the next time, that after the election, we would meet up again. Um, so yeah, it's been several months. There's not much, I guess, for us to talk about now that hasn't already been. I mean, what a charade, though. What a big pull in the wool over the country's eyes, of somebody that had cognitive issues. There's so many examples of that, and it just some people just double down and so tribal, and just, this is the hill I'm going to die on, and all of that. But so, of course, this is May now. Of course, we're talking about November. I just want to go back for a minute, and for the people that may not think that there was a coup that happened, a coup d'état. Just please try to think about the fact that, after this last debate that Biden had with Trump, within the next couple of weeks, some reporters asking him, "So, are you ready for another 4 years? You feel like you can take it on, you can handle it?" And he's like, he's singing from the same song sheet as Gavin Newsom. "I'm the best I've ever been. Yeah, I'm ready. I'm robust. Age is my superpower. All this stuff." So he's ready to go. He's ready and raring.
You know, uh,
Okay.
us Americans, I find this profoundly disturbing. And all we wanted was a simple truth. Just,
Right.
just tell us the truth. Don't lie to us. No subterfuge. Don't pull the wool over our head. With Pelosi and Harris and Nadler and Schiff and Schumer and Waters and all of them
Yeah.
just lying out of the side of their mouth. Everything's fine. Nothing to see here. Move along.
Right. Right.
Guess what? There was plenty to see, but the media helped them pull the wool over everyone's eyes.
Right. I mean, just everybody, come on, we're gonna spread this lie, and we're gonna cover up until after that debate, and then we saw some Democrats in Congress and other people in the media going, he's having problems because I guess their bottom line is they wanted their side to win. He was a puppet in doing what they told him anyway, but we at least got to make sure the puppet wins,
Yeah,
or none of us win.
they said everything that they could possibly say,
Yeah,
whether it was the truth or not. That the truth
yeah,
got damaged beyond repair. You know,
yeah.
now books are coming out where they're saying, "Well, he should have been in a wheelchair. We shouldn't have let him run at all," and all of
Right.
his minders are speaking out.
Yeah. And then just what I've been thinking about the most, like, over the last month, is the fact that, well, to go back to what I was saying, he said he's ready to go and all of this, and he's fine. And then about 2 weeks later or less, he resigns. There's a resignation letter that's published, which I would bet my life he didn't write or have anything to do with. And he resigns, and nobody's asking any questions. Like, isn't it strange? Right. And then um Jill Biden, she says after the election that Nancy Pelosi kicked him out. Now, I didn't know specifically who it was, but clearly some of the people at the heads of the party who were running it made that decision. Now, couple that with the fact that in 2021, Pelosi said on camera, we might need to be prepared to invoke the 25th Amendment if he's not able to continue. So that lines right up with
She just put
what
it that
Jill
way.
said. Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, yeah. And then Biden, he's wearing MAGA hats and going over to the White House after the election. He's sitting next to Trump, smiling with a bigger smile than Trump has. And he's saying, I told you I would have beat him. It's because you picked her
I know.
that she lost.
The whole thing was an unmitigated disaster.
Yeah.
And we have ill informed politicians. We have people that are dedicated to not speaking the truth. And that is,
Yeah.
I'm pointing it right at the media. And you know
Yes.
who they are: the Washington Post, the New York Times, CNN, MSNBC,
Yeah.
National Public Broadcasting, on and on and on. They, when you hear the totals, how much positive Trump coverage, how much positive
Right.
Democratic
Right.
coverage. I mean, it's night and day. 60, 70, 80% of articles on Trump are all negative. Yet the articles on the Biden administration were 60, 70, 80% positive.
Right.
Tell me they're not biased.
Yeah. Yeah, they are. And their biggest audience is to the people that don't watch them much. The people that they have busy, full lives, and they run their news off of 5 and 10 second sound clips and video bites. And I'm really just gonna skim the surface like a rock on a pond and not, go really into this. But anybody that was
Elmo,
paying attention,
I
yeah,
have
go
a
ahead.
relative who lives at least 1,000 miles away from me. And from their lips, I said, "How do you stay informed?" Oh, NPR and CNN and the Washington Post.
Yeah.
Exit stage left. I don't even
Right,
want to have
right.
a conversation with this person because I will probably end up wanting to shoot them.
Yeah, it was like different versions of the same team.
Yeah.
Instead of hearing, I mean, just listen, just see what the other side is saying. Even if you consider the other side your enemy, you should want to know what they're saying.
I will listen to them, and
Right.
then I'll give them my side, and we'll see which
Yeah.
one's supported by the facts.
Right. And then when somebody makes a claim that you think is not true, you can go looking for it on your own. I'm speaking to the audience because there are organizations out here and people out here that aren't indebted. They're not in bed with uh, a PAX or a party or anything, and they are dedicated to the truth.
Well,
And
facts are
they're
inconvenient truths, aren't they?
yeah, yeah, right. Right, right, right. But so here we are now in May of 25, and I thought that we would touch on immigration and the deportation that's been
One of
going
my
on.
favorite topics. I'll tell you, I'm a math guy. So I sat down a couple hours ago. I knew we were going to be talking about this. And I was thinking, how many planes have to be ferrying people out of America to wherever they're going every day to make
Yeah,
a real dent? Now, we've heard the media tell us that 10 million illegals have come in. I think the number is somewhere between 23 and 35 million. Okay. That's my belief based on what I've researched.
and let me
So
ask you about that.
go
Is
ahead.
and that number is over what span of time would
Over
you
the
say?
Biden presidency.
Okay,
Okay. Because, forever we were told, oh, there were 11 million. Yeah, there were 11
yeah,
million 3 years ago. Okay.
right, right,
So here's my math. You get a big plane, 250 people. You got 40 of them going out of America daily. That's 10,000 illegals deported daily on the plane out of US airspace.
hmm,
Times 30 days a month, that's 300,000 deportations for a month. 12 months, that's 3.6 million a year. You got 4 years of Trump's presidency. That's 14.5 million deportations. That's a pretty darn good start. Now,
Yeah.
here's the problem. This is May. It's not
Right.
January 1st. We're already
Right.
4 months in. We're behind by 1.2 million already. Okay. You think we're going to see 40 plane loads a day going out? You know the logistics to support that?
Right.
I think 9 went this week to Mexico.
Wow. Is that all?
That's what I said. Okay. Why don't you multiply that by 10? Okay.
And so there's some concern of people that are being deported, and there being a due process of at least proving their citizenship or their non-citizenship. Where and when and we conservatives, we don't want people to be rounded up because they look like a MS-13 gang member, or they don't speak a lick of English.
Right.
That's not conclusive
That was
evidence
to the
about somebody
benefit of the
being a
doubt. But,
yeah.
for someone who already has an order of expulsion from a judge,
Oh,
he's
yeah.
already gotten the due, he's already gotten the process. There's
Yeah.
nothing left other than get his ass on the plane.
Right. Right. Yeah. And then, I'm just thinking, I like to, in whatever I do, always try to cover the basics. You never graduate from the basics. And just with the simple things, because most things are simple, not complicated. Do you have an ID? We're not talking about voting. We're just talking about proving that you're a citizen. Because you know what? I was born in America, and every time I apply for a job, I have to prove that I'm not only a citizen, but that I don't have a criminal record. Depending on where it is, they look into it deeper with some things more than others.
Well, in the
But
last 10 years or so, that's become more prevalent than
no,
25, 30 years ago. Yeah.
right, right. So I don't think it's infringing upon anybody's rights to show ID, which to get a driver's license, you got to be a citizen.
You know, I might
So
have I might have mentioned this in our last interview, but I remember it like it was yesterday. I was in Dallas, and this must have been, I don't know, 6, 7 years ago. And I was there for a marketing conference. We were at one of the big, gigantic hotels, and we were going to ballroom A, and I'm in line to get into the ballroom, and I'm looking at ballroom B across the hall, and it's the
okay,
Texas State Teachers Association or some name similar to that. And they
right,
had the tables and the ribbons and the people and the labels and everything else. And all these teachers had to show identification to get into a conference of teachers in Texas.
right,
They're not voting, they're not getting
right,
on a plane, they're not getting a mortgage, they're not
right.
renting an apartment. They're walking into a conference for teachers and they had to show ID. So why
Hmm.
is it racist to ask
Hmm.
for ID? I don't get it.
Yeah, that's just one of several examples of trying to hitch your wagon train to another thing or another movement, which is civil rights or rights of black people, or trying to get a group, get a crowd behind you.
Right.
Because I was saying back, years ago when they were talking about that being racist, I would say, well, we need to stop requiring ID when somebody wants to buy Jack Daniels. Or the next time a police officer stops you for a moving violation and he asks for your ID, you tell him to kiss your ass. I am not showing
Or
you
you got to
nothing.
get into an R-rated movie when you're a teenager.
Right, right. Which I'm glad to say, here in Atlanta that there's a couple major theaters, megaplexes, which do require that. I've
Yeah.
witnessed it at the box office, and it's also on the website.
Same thing if you go
So
to a bar and you look young.
yeah, right.
Yeah.
Oh, now, I see. I mean, I'm in my 50s, but I'll be in a grocery store and see signs near checkout saying, "If you look like you're under 40, we're gonna ask you for your
I
ID."
haven't been carded in a long time.
Yeah, yeah. So that's just propaganda.
Yeah.
But just asking people basic things like that, and a social security number. And it's like, listen, if I was an ICE person, an ICE agent, I would say, hey, I am hoping the best for you. You're telling me that you're a citizen. I, I I want you to stay here. If you're a citizen, I want you to stay here. But how old are you? You're 30 years old. Okay, then you must have worked somewhere, so you should have a social security number. I don't think you can. Well, somebody said you can get a social security number without being a citizen. I don't
That's
understand what the
very
purpose would be.
that is very problematic. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's so that someone can work, so that along with the rest of your taxes, there's money taken out to go to Social Security, so that in the future, or people that are now turning 65 or retiring can collect Social Security. It's a
Right.
system. This is a part of our government.
Yes.
You know, so just if we just the things that take the least amount of time, that are the most basic, we could run through that, and then that'll make the red flags pop up, with just basic everyday stuff. When somebody gets into a car accident at a four-way intersection in the middle of Austin, Texas, and they just get out and start bailing, why do they ever catch those people? Why are they so hard to catch? You never see them again. If I was the guy who got hit, I'd catch him myself. I'd be
No.
on my cell phone going, okay, he's hopping over a fence.
Yeah. So, yesterday I was looking at a video, and it was talking about. Have you ever heard of the Villages? It's an area of Florida, which is a pre-planned community, and there's
Hmm.
a huge amount of people there, like over 100,000. So there's literally over a dozen distinct communities with like 1,000 homes each. So this is a gigantic pre-planned community somewhere
Right.
near the middle of Florida.
Okay.
And ICE and Homeland Security raided 2 days ago, and they captured 30 illegals that were building homes there. So all these subcontractors were illegal.
Right.
So
Right. Not building for
the
themselves,
30,
but as
no,
being hired as
actually got
as
away.
as builder.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. They don't know how to speak English, but they can hammer a nail.
Sure.
I get it. Okay. Just like if you pass by a Home Depot on the way to work, you would see all the daily workers off to the side of the parking lot hoping to get work for the day.
Right.
Okay. Now it's a red flag because Homeland Security knows about that. You know,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. And I heard the testimony of this one guy who was at Home Depot. He said this is a Spanish guy. He said he's been a citizen all his life, and he was just dressed in a polo shirt and jeans, and he is a citizen, and that they mistreated him, or they came very close to arresting him. So at the same time, all of these on a case by case basis have to be followed, and whenever something wrong is implemented, there needs to be justice. Things need to be followed through on.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And so this is kind of why we have to slow down and be methodical and take our time, to make sure that other people don't get washed over and knocked down in the process of going after whoever really needs
But
to be
but at the
going
same
after.
time, every illegal that is an illegal can't have a court case with the ACLU in front of a judge, because you would have court cases for the next 51 years.
Sure.
That can't happen. Okay.
Yes.
So there's a difference, and I'm not an attorney, and I don't play one on TV,
Right.
but there's a difference between due process and getting your day in court. Okay,
Yeah.
I think due process might be in front of an administrative judge, number 32, calling number 32. Kind of like at the deli. Okay,
Right.
where are
Right.
you from? What's your native language? When did you come here? Fingerprints, retina
Yeah.
scan, the whole 9 yards. You're from Honduras, for example, and you
Mhm.
came under the fence. We're sending you back. You have no legal right to be here. Okay.
Right, and I had mentioned a little earlier about some people they may only speak Spanish and very little or no English. But I think to get a green card or to become a citizen, that's one of the requirements. You need to understand how the government works. Know that there are three branches co-equal with the purposes of each. So different logistical things about the country and the government. And I think there's a certain level of English you're required to know
Yeah.
to become an official citizen.
I was reading something on the Heritage website the other day, and I think it was a long quote by, I think it was Teddy Roosevelt. And he was talking about immigration. And the fact is that the only people that we want here are people that truly want to be Americans. Okay.
Yeah, yeah,
That learn our customs, that speak our language, and that want to become within the fabric of America. Okay.
sure.
Not in the, Colombian section of the Queens, or the El Salvador section of the Bronx, something like that. But, Americans, weaved into the fabric of our country.
Right. Because that's really what it means. Like there are many people who they came here as children or young adults. So bring your culture and your heritage and your memory with you. But understand you're coming to a different country where there's a difference. There's a difference between the Puerto Ricans in New York and the Puerto Ricans in Puerto Rico. There just is
Oh, I,
in the
I
culture.
I had them in my schools because I
Sure.
grew up in Manhattan on the Lower East Side, and all of my schools, they were literally one third African American, one third Puerto Rican, which was not a bad word. Now we call it Hispanic. No,
Mm,
no, nothing meant by that, and about one
mhm.
third white. And there were
Right.
just a couple of Asians. There weren't many.
Mhm.
And then, the numbers just started to shift as I got older. I saw more Asians come in,
Mhm.
more Hispanics come in. Um, and it was just like a melting pot. And we all got
Right.
along together, and that was fine.
And you know what? Then it becomes like just taking that one school, for example, the culture becomes a mix where different people or races borrow things from other races
Yeah, I
with
had the
language and slang.
Spanish club, the French club, the fencing club,
Mm,
the swimming club, the basketball club. There were like 30 different clubs. Okay.
yeah.
Then again, we had 4,000 kids at my high school.
Oh, wow.
It was one city block at Delancey Street.
Yeah. 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 That's huge.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
Cause my high school was 3,300. That was as open school, not
Right.
limited to one district, but where you could live anywhere in the city and
I
go.
think the ninth grade class, there were about 800 people in the ninth grade class.
Wow. Was it a lot of gangs? Cause
You
it's so
know,
many people.
I I have no memory. So we're talking, I was in high school 70, 71, 72, 73.
Oh,
I
wow.
don't have any memory of gangs. I remember cliques. You hang
Mhm.
out with the cool kids. And
Yeah.
then there's the kids that smoke. Then there's the basketball players, the football players. There were cliques, but there weren't any gangs that I remember.
Maybe after the Warriors came out, people started to get their own jackets like teams, you know. It's like, yeah, yeah, we're gonna
I,
be
I was in the clique that went for the bagel and coffee across the street.
yeah, 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 that's good. Yeah. Well, let's see. Let's see. One
Want to talk
second.
tariffs or some such nonsense?
Yeah, I did want to mention or touch on that. Um, and I guess I'll just say what my thoughts and feelings have been for the last month is I understand what tariffs are, as many people do. We learn about it in school, and the tariffs that have been implemented this year, I have never seen any to that percentage or on that scale. So we're kind of in uncharted waters in knowing what the result is going to be to me. Now, sometimes you have you have an initial negative result right at the beginning, like when you first get a shot at the doctor or you get surgery.
I
There's
was thinking the
pain
same exact thing.
on the first
It
day,
hurts,
but
and 2
then
days later you feel better. Yeah.
right. And so and someone else, some economists had said this also, is in 6 or 7 months we'll know and time will tell. So I appreciate criticism from different people.
People want instant
So
gratification. Hey, it's been
yeah,
24 hours. The tariff didn't work. Well, you're an idiot. So be quiet
yeah.
and wait.
Right. And then listen, I haven't looked into this, but I also haven't heard any pushback about it from the other side. When at the State of Union, he was just reading some of what were charged by other countries, like with India charging us 3 times as much as we charge them, and China having 100%, tariffs, right?
Or
So
600% on rice to Japan, I think it was. And Canada dairy over
yeah, yeah,
100%. And
right.
there are also non-tariff issues as well. So, for example, for some block of time, we were not able to sell dairy products to the EU. It wasn't a matter of how
Hmm,
high is the tariff. They would not accept beef from North Dakota, Indiana,
really?
Texas, whatever. It was it was prohibited to come in. So it wasn't a matter of we're going to charge you a dime.
Mhm.
We're not just letting it in at all.
And that was primarily because of additives and preservatives and things
Well,
that
and
we
but
put in our
also
food.
they're protecting their own producers,
Oh yeah, okay,
which is why,
sure,
Japan grows rice. There's a lot of rice as a staple in their diet. They did
right.
not want anyone else's rice coming in, which would disrupt their own producers. Okay. So they said no imports at all.
Now this is how I feel as a capitalist and an entrepreneur, is that if somebody that is from another planet, they come over and set up across the street from me and they have a better product than I do, then I need to raise my standard.
You need to
And
up
I
your
need
game.
I
Yeah.
right,
Yeah,
right.
well,
And
a lot
so
of countries don't play that way. They just don't
yeah,
open their markets. So when everyone's
yeah,
saying, it's about tariffs, it's not only about tariffs.
right.
You remember the articles a couple of years ago where China was stealing the intellectual property of Apple, with the design of the iPhones and all that stuff. So they had
Yeah.
to show them the secret sauce,
Mhm.
okay, and share the patents or stuff like that. So it wasn't just a percentage tariff, you know.
Sure,
Okay.
sure. And the other thing I was gonna say is I think the reciprocal tariffs is a good idea
Yeah, oh yeah.
because
You charge me
then
40%, I'll charge you 40%. I
right.
think that's magnificent.
And then the country on the other end, they know that if they bring down to 5%, that we will do it
And
also,
we all
which is
go to
very good
5
for
and everyone
them.
lives happily ever after. I agree.
It's a great idea,
Yes. Yeah.
and
Why didn't
then
Biden think of that?
well, first you got to be able to think. I mean, with that brain fog and that soup out there, you don't know
Jill could have told
what's
him.
going on.
Jill could have
Uh,
told him what to say.
oh boy. or you could ask him about that. I wouldn't be surprised if this week you asked his opinion and he babbled for a few seconds and go, "We fixed Medicare."
Well,
Yeah.
it's amazing what Trump has done over the last week. If you miss one day's worth of news, I mean, you're totally at the back of the room that you didn't hear stuff. You're not up to date. So
Yeah.
everything he's done in the last 7 days, there's been like nine huge things, all
Mhm.
of which Biden could have done,
Right.
never did.
Yeah.
Why? Why?
Yeah. Well, there's no tip on the end of the spear that's driving something forward. And so then you have to have a group to knit things together, and that takes more time. But somebody has to be leading. Somebody has to come up with the ideas. But it was just yeah,
So
just
let me ask you a question. I'm not sure I have this right, but you remember during the last month of the Biden administration, they had uh, a cabinet meeting, and I remember reading in the paper that it was like only one or two cabinet meetings during his whole administration.
oh wow.
He didn't have cabinet meetings. Meanwhile, Trump has had what, six of them already, and they've all been with reporters in the room
Right.
for a
Communication.
portion of it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right. Well, they had to hide him because when the leader has a stammering or stuttering
It's a
or
myth.
they're not making sense. Yeah, you got to cover up. It's so much. It's embarrassing.
Well, the whole
You
idea
know.
of a cabinet is you put people in a room that are smarter than you are, and
Yeah.
you give them rope, let them run.
Yeah.
Okay,
Right.
because you can't do it all. Okay,
Yes.
and let them run. And Biden, I don't know what he did. Okay.
Yeah. He's just just like an actor. He may have well been putting on a rubber mask and following someone's direction
No,
every
no
day.
different than Chuck Schumer or Jerry
Yeah.
Nadler. Um,
Mhm.
and Jerry Nadler has a special place in my heart for being a terrible politician. So I grew up in a place called Stuyvesant Town in Midtown Manhattan.
Mhm.
And right across the street, there was Stuyvesant High School, which was one of the three specialized schools in New York City. There was the Bronx High School of Science, Brooklyn Tech, and Stuyvesant High. And if you got
Mhm.
into one of those three, you were a straight A student.
Okay.
Jerry Nadler, unfortunately, graduated from Stuyvesant High. So I used to like Stuyvesant High, but when I learned that, I don't like Stuyvesant High anymore.
Yeah. I mean, so he obviously got good grades and was a
Yes,
good
he got good
student, but
grades, and he's a terrible
his
politician.
yeah, right, right. His ideals you know use for evil,
Yes,
somebody can
unfit
be
politicians, as I call them.
yeah. Yeah. So yeah, with the things that Doge has exposed and that have come out. I know we're gonna talk about that. Of course, uh, we know that there's pork that's in the taxpayers' money and the things that government uses money for what they do. The things that I heard about this year, where teaching dance classes in Mozambique and having Afghanistan version of Sesame Street and all this stuff that we're paying for. I know that most Americans didn't know about that, but I didn't know that pork was a thing because when Biden was in there, they were talking about money allocated for researching certain kind of turtles that are in India and all these erroneous
Well,
things.
I write about this extensively. I have listed out dozens and dozens of examples where Doge found things that would turn your stomach and your head. And may I give a little
Mm.
commercial, Elmo?
Oh yeah, sure.
Okay. So I have a website called eocritic.com, short for Equal Opportunity Critic. and on there you could sign up for my update. I send it out twice a month. It's called the Equal Opportunity Times. And what I do is I research what is going on in the country and the world, and I write about it. I give it my slant. And when it comes to Doge, when it comes to immigration, when it comes to tariffs, when it comes to Democratic judges being activists and
Mhm.
putting out national injunctions, when a district court, which is the lowest court in the nation, other than traffic court, doesn't
Yeah,
have the authority, they do it anyway. And I write about
right.
all this stuff every 2 weeks. So sign up for free, eocritic.com.
Yeah, thank you for that. And it's good to see people writing or put something in print in this day and age. And it's a different kind of thing, and it has a different value
Right.
uh, than we see so much video and visual stuff, and of course this is video here, but it's something about when you're reading, you're just seeing or focusing more on what's being said, and there's no visual distractions.
You raise a very, very good point. Are you familiar with the Daily Wire?
Yes.
Okay. So, one of the first things that I noticed about the Daily Wire that separated it from all other media outlets. So, let's say you wanted to read an article about Trump and tariffs or something. So, you could watch a video about it, you could listen verbally, about it, or you
Sure.
could read the article. So they gave you three different choices how you wanted to inhale the information, which is great because, if you
Yes.
go to a lot of media, all they got is videos. I don't want
Yeah.
a video. I'd like to read an article. Thank you very much. And I like the fact
Yeah.
that they give you the choice. You could read the article.
Yeah, that's good. Because a lot of a lot of the news stories, it's entertainment with the way that it's presented,
Yes.
and then you're hearing the inflection of someone's voice, and they can have dramatic theme music playing on different parts of what is being said. Whereas you're not taking any of that into account when you're just reading information. And
Right.
then I like to see when people, they actually kill all the sound around them and turn everything off. I read the Lord of the Rings trilogy on the train going to work in 9 months. Read all three books, and it's like 35-40 minutes each way. And, I mean, it could be noisy on the train, but I wasn't doing anything else. Or I wasn't focusing on
Well,
anything else.
I commend you. So, like me, you're a reader. You've heard of Atlas Shrugged, okay? Ayn Rand, okay? Atlas Shrugged is around 1,238 pages. I read it
Wow.
every December. It
Oh,
is,
wow.
and I've read it 19 years in a row. It is a tremendous, masterful work, okay? Where
Hmm.
she teaches her philosophy, uh, and it's wonderful. So the trilogy, The Lord of the Rings, you're talking what 2,000 pages?
Um, close to 1100.
Okay, I
You
thought it
know,
was more. Okay,
yeah, with all those together. But I was at the library yesterday inquiring about the Song of Fire and Ice, those books. Game of Thrones, which is
right.
one of the four books, and that's really immense. You know, that's really immense. I got to kind of not have too much else going on when I go through, because I don't want to let too much time go by. When I dive into it, so that I can really appreciate it. But that is is an amazing chronicle, and I would have never guessed that George R. R. Martin is from Long Island and not from Europe, or
I used to
you
have
know
girlfriends in Long Island. No, but
yeah.
one other great resource. Do you ever look at American Thinker?
I'm not familiar with that.
AmericanThinker.com. Um, they get together dozens and dozens of different authors or write journalists, and
Mhm.
every day I look at it, there's always something I want to read,
Oh, that's great.
and it is very, very good. I believe it to be more of a conservative outlet, okay, which
Yeah.
is fine with me.
Mhm.
But they're very, very good at curating excellent, well-written articles um, that deserve a place in your reading repertoire.
Yeah. Okay. All right. All right. Good deal.
By the
Yeah.
way,
Yeah.
did you ever finish my book?
I'm sorry. Honestly, I have not finished that. Uh,
So,
but
Place
I
in America, Broken
go
Politics,
ahead.
Broken Country is yours to read. And I'll even give you a bonus. I'll let you have a free 1 hour consult with the author.
Is that just for me or anyone listening?
No, that's just for you.
Okay. I feel privileged. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, but just on a kind of a different note, I have gone through a divorce and finished that, and that's fairly recent in the last month or
That's a
so.
big thing to put behind you. That's going to take time and a
Yeah,
lot of soul searching and spirit searching. And I get it. I
yeah,
get
and now you know why I live in a different place.
it. Okay. I get that. I get that.
Yeah, so yeah, that's taking up a lot of my time.
Yeah.
But we have to put in the diligence on some things so that it can be behind us.
So here's a
Because
recommendation. My
yeah,
daughter, like me, is a reader, and she
mhm,
she goes to all these different bookstores within like a half hour of her.
yeah,
Um, DeKalb and all these areas around Atlanta. So you got a lot of
right,
bookstores, and I'm not talking just Barnes and Noble, okay, but a lot of
right.
great bookstores that you could probably find treasures there. You know.
Yeah, and I'm glad you mentioned that because there's been two Barnes and Nobles that have closed down.
Oh,
One within the last 6 months, I would say,
right.
and the other was a couple of years ago. And I know why is because there's less people reading, and many of the ones that do, they're using the Kindle,
And they
and
want
they
they want videos. Yes.
yeah. But I mean, guys like you and me, we like the feel of the texture of the cover, the hard cover, and the
And I like to
pages.
highlight the words either
Yeah,
with pen or yellow highlighter.
highlighter.
I dog ear pages.
Yeah.
Um, I'm old school.
So that's it's kind of unfortunate. I was sorry to see that happen. But the great works and the great writings, they will last. That's what classic work does.
Yeah.
It does never get old. It stands out. And
Find some
uh
independent bookstores. Yeah.
right, yeah. And so the smaller ones, I guess what I was leading to,
Yeah.
the smaller ones, they're doing better. They're going to be around. um they have been around for a long time, and I know what you mean. There's some communities where there's lots of bookstores within a couple of blocks
Right.
of everything they have, yeah, connected together. Uh, so is there anything else going on?
I
Anything
wanted to ask
in
you a question.
okay.
So when you imbibe the news, okay, what channels, resources do you look at?
Yeah, so I do a variety of WSB radio that's in Atlanta, uh, 750 AM, and conservative radio and podcasts. It takes time to find people and host that you trust. So Red Eye Radio, uh, Dana. Oh, what is her name?
Dana
Dana Lash.
Oh, okay.
Dana Lash, spelled Loesh, I believe. You know, where they report the facts on it, and they would tell you the whole story, even though they put their their opinion on it. I like the fact that they say, yes, I have an opinion, but my opinion is based on facts, and it's not hidden that I
Right.
am conservative.
Yeah.
And so understand that that's not the same as your traditional journalism, or if you watch David Muir on, oh, what is he on? I don't want to get him mixed up. I know Stephanopoulos is on ABC. So I think this is it may be NBC,
I
but
just started listening to Brett Baer and Sean
oh yeah,
Hannity, both of which are on
really?
Fox, and they are superb at the details
Hmm.
and uncovering, what is below the surface. And they are well worth listening to because when they explore a topic, they go very, very in depth
Yeah.
and they're not just swayed by the red or the blue. You know,
Right. I used to listen to Sean Hannity a lot. He's syndicated here, and of course, he had his show on TV.
yeah, and
He
he just interviewed the president on Air Force One on the way to Saudi Arabia.
Okay. All right. Good deal. But yeah, and Brett Baer, I would say that he's the best of his pack on
Yes,
that channel. Just with a guy who you remember how Ted Koppel, Peter Jennings,
I grew
different
up with.
guys,
Yes,
they would report, and it just you couldn't tell if they had a side,
right.
which side they were on. They were more like the sports commentator who doesn't care who wins, but I'm gonna tell you about different aspects of both sides, and what's going on.
Yeah, I'll give you the play-by-play, and you figure out if you like them or not.
Right, right. And it's better, it's going to be better and a better result, and it's better for the reporter if they go into it. If that was my occupation, I could I would have to either stop caring. I would still vote, but I'm saying I would have to get into a state of mind so that I could really, not be I wouldn't want to be affected.
Oh, I get it, but all in all, what your listeners or viewers should be doing is getting their information from a variety of sources.
Yeah,
Not just their favorite, whether it's TV or YouTube or radio or what or podcast or whatever, but a variety of them. Okay,
right.
because it's amazing where you could have two or three different media outlets report on the same story and you never know they're talking about the same thing. The slant is unbelievable. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but then as far as, many of the old newspaper companies are now online with their websites, and so I read a lot of articles online, and so I will go to the Washington Post and the New York Times and Breitbart and
Breitbart is
Raw
interesting. I started looking at them. Yeah.
Raw Story,
Yeah.
and sometimes you want to see what they have in common,
Yeah.
and then if something is standing out, something's mentioned one place is not mentioned in another, then that's something to look into and
Oh,
find
I
out
agree with
what's
that.
actually going on with that.
Well, I want to thank you for your time today. I'll tell your listeners, go on to Amazon, which I think is well. There's two bookstores left in the galaxy. There's Amazon and there's Barnes and Noble.
Yeah.
Pick up a copy of Erasing America: Broken Politics, Broken Country. I'm sure you'll get a laugh, a giggle, and you'll learn something. Okay, and tell this fella to read it.
Yeah. All right, thanks, Roger.
Okay,
You're great. It's always
thank
good
you.
having you on.
This has been fun, Elmo. Have a wonderful weekend.
Thank you too. Be safe, and I'll be talking to you again.
Okay, bye bye now.
Bye.